In the small rural town of Riverton, where rusty tractors lined the roads and the nights were darker than most dreams, lived a 17-year-old boy named Eli Morgan. To most, Eli was a dropout, a waste of potential, some said. Others barely noticed. He wasn't seen at school events or on the football field. No, you'd find Eli buried under the hood of a junked engine, his hands stained with grease, his mind turning faster than any gear he worked with. Eli had grown up in his grandfather's garage, a place that smelled like oil, iron, and old leather. His grandfather had been the town's most respected mechanic, known for fixing anything, from a lawnmower to a combine harvester, with little more than instinct. But since his passing, the garage had become Eli's sanctuary and obsession. Everyone assumed he was wasting his life. So when the state government announced a new hydroelectric dam near Riverton, the town buzzed with hope. New jobs, electricity. For surrounding areas, modern progress. It was everything a tired old town like Riverton needed. Top engineers and tech teams from the city moved in with their clean boots and expensive equipment. The turbines were state-of-the-art, imported from Europe. The control system ran on advanced algorithms. Everything was perfect, until it wasn't. As the construction reached its final stages, the main turbine, the critical engine meant to generate power for thousands, simply wouldn't run properly. It would start, spin a few seconds, and then violently shut down due to overheating. The engineers tweaked the controls, rewired systems, even replaced whole components. Still nothing. Weeks passed. Deadlines were missed. The power company grew. Nervous, pressure mounted, and Eli watched. Quietly. Each evening, after the workers left, he would ride his bike to the outer fences of the dam site, pretending to pass by. He observed everything, the layout, the sound of the turbine, even the frustrated body language of the engineers. He didn't have a degree or certification, but he had something none of them did. Raw, unfiltered mechanical intuition. And a hunch. He believed the issue wasn't in the software or the turbine itself. It was in the governor, the mechanical part that regulates speed and keeps the turbine from overspinning. From what he'd seen and overheard, it was mismatched for the rest of the system, likely a result of cost-cutting or a supplier error. That night, Eli didn't sleep. He scoured the piles of scrap metal outside his garage, stripped parts from an old moped engine, and began machining a makeshift governor on his grandfather's dusty lathe. He worked through the night, carefully welding, filing, and measuring. It wasn't beautiful, but it was balanced. And that was all it needed to be. The next morning, Eli showed up at the dam site with the part wrapped in a rag. The security guard laughed. You think you're going to fix what $1 million team couldn't? Eli didn't argue. Just 5 minutes, he said calmly. By some mix of pity, curiosity, and desperation, one of the junior engineers led him into the control room. The lead engineers protested, but the site director, tired, stressed, and out of options, finally said, "Let the kid try." With everyone watching like he was about to crash a rocket into the earth, Eli approached the turbine. He moved with surprising confidence, gently removing the old governor and installing his improvised version. The room fell silent. He flipped the switch. At first, nothing. Then, a slow hum. A vibration. The turbine began to spin. Faster, faster. Then, steady. Meters on the control panel began rising, voltage, current, RPM, all within optimal range. Lights in the test grid began to flicker on. The system held. No overheating. No failure. For a few seconds, no one said a word. Then came the clapping. One of the engineers even laughed in disbelief. "That's impossible," he muttered. Asterisk. But it was happening. And Eli Morgan had just done what trained experts and millions in funding had failed to do. Asterisk word spread like wildfire. Asterisk in the days that followed. News crews arrived. Local papers ran the headline, "Teen mechanic fixes what engineers couldn't." State officials visited Riverton just to meet the boy in the oily hoodie. Universities offered him scholarships. Tech companies emailed with internship offers. Even the Dam Project's lead engineer personally thanked him. Asterisk, but Eli didn't care much for cameras or attention. Asterisk, what mattered more was how people looked at him now. Not with pity, not with dismissal, but with respect. Asterisk, the same neighbors who once shook their heads when they passed his noisy garage were now knocking on his door, asking for help with their engines, their solar systems, even their kids' science projects. Asterisk, his mother, who had spent years worrying about her son's future, stood at the edge of a crowd one evening as someone handed him a plaque of recognition. She smiled quietly, her eyes full of pride. Asterisk, a few months later, the engineering firm that built the dam offered to partner with him to fund a full-scale workshop and innovation lab right in Riverton. Not just for Eli, but for other young minds who didn't fit the traditional mold but had the spark. Asterisk, but Eli never stopped returning to that garage. Asterisk, because he knew where it all began, not with blueprints or titles, but with a question no one else asked. Asterisk, what if the problem isn't too big? What if everyone else is just looking at it wrong?